key to your day may be everything you require to create everything you desire. In order to create, in order to master, in order to truly tap into the knowledge, your healing, your growth. One thing that I had to understand was I had to understand the difference between the allure and the infatuation. I had to understand the difference between the allure and the infatuation. The infatuation is the intellect, the knowledge before it's applied, the sight. Infatuation would be the sight, the intellect, versus the allure would be the intelligence or the application of that knowledge. Understanding the difference between these two aspects is a major key in your shadow work. It's a major key in your building. It's the major key in your transmutation. Is understanding the difference between the allure and that infatuation. The teacher versus the preacher. The teacher versus the preacher aspect. See, with what I've understood, as I understand, and this week in the God Hour podcast, we got into natural selection, embracing the transition. We got into, if you're not familiar with the God Hour podcast, 3 segments, 1 session, 3 segments. First segment, raising red flags. Second segment, awakening the design. Last segment, we got into the casualties of exalting. Understanding that sometimes the things that we see as red flags are based on our conditions in our selection process of our growth. And we use these red flags to look at how our conflict shapes our path. And from avoidance, we use the red flags as an obstacle versus using the red flag as the true trigger point to understand opportunity within ourselves, learning ourselves. And then understanding that in that process, there's always going to be casualties in your exalting or in your rising. As you shift, as you grow, the infatuation fades as you now become into your true authentic self. So that came into today's message, allure versus infatuation, or the intelligence versus the intellect. It goes into the aspects of how it's applied, how you listen to information, how it hits you, and how you use it. That's the intelligence. Genius. Genius is simply wanting to do. It's simply wanting to learn. So allure would be under the aspects of seeing the why or the how something is applied versus the what and the when. See, with infatuation, whether it's in the beginning of a relationship, the beginning of when you understand some information, whatever you're doing in that space, taking in that experience, infatuation is the intellect. I know this and I know this. Let me see how I can make these two go together. So it gives you this feeling. It keeps you in that feeling. And then you create the scenarios based on that feeling. Now that I know this, now I can continue going forward instead of going within. When you think about the allure, when I think about the allure, I think about organic. When I think about allure, I think about organic. I think about the organic application. I think about the organic application and therefore a vulnerability. I think about vulnerability when I think about allure. When I think about infatuation, when I think about infatuation, I think about the feeling, the relevance of that feeling, how something makes you feel. Usually, a lot of times, when we fall for the infatuation phase, we create the scenarios in our mind based on the infatuation. So, give an example. The infatuation would be the dream. Infatuation would be the dream. The allure would be the energy that I use into the plan. So, think about your job. Think about your job. Everything comes into you based on emotion. So think about your job. Think about the conversations that you have. Think about the people that come into your space. Think about go all the way to the aspects of think about the people that you listen to get information from. Are they giving you an infatuation? Something that you can quickly apply? It can make you feel good? Or are they giving you something that's based on this alluring sense? One of the biggest things that we have to understand is that alluring sense. It's organic. It forces you, every time you go back to it, you think about something differently in the aspects of you go deeper within yourself. As opposed to the infatuation, it's surface and subsurface level. When you think about infatuation, it's surface and subsurface level. So, use the example. Looking at me, got my skull shirt on, got my crystals, got all of my accessories. I can spin a story. I can spin a very infatuating story with information, with emotional taglines in it. I can draw you in, keep you in there emotionally, and keep you in those certain biases of things that you haven't dealt with. You'll be triggered, but there's nothing behind it. When you go deeper into it, there's nothing behind it. It takes you further away from yourself. As opposed to the allure, the alluring effect. That means it sits there with you. That alluring effect, it sits there with you. It forces you to look at yourself. It forces you to think about yourself a little bit more. Similar to, I'm outside in the rain. I'm gonna be doing more videos like this. The alluring sense is what you look for in a teacher, you look for in a healer, you look for in a counselor, because it's meant to make you think. It's meant to make you think about that plan. It's meant to make you think about your standard. It's meant to make you think about the quality and the stability in your life. It's meant to make you raise those red flags. Those red flags that get raised and why they're being raised. The best way that I explain, because I talked about exposure versus vulnerability, exposure is me telling you my favorite color, me telling you my favorite food, me telling you my favorite movie, me telling you my favorite trip destination. And you can become infatuated by me sharing this intellectual aspect of myself. Oh my God, he told me his favorite color, he told me his favorite food, he told me his favorite vacation spot. They told me this, this, and this. It made me feel I want to go there too. You look for a reason to attach to it emotionally. But the allure is me telling you a story from the beginning, the middle, and the end of how my favorite color came to be. How I came into my favorite color. How I came into my favorite color came to be. How my favorite colors are blue, purple, and black. The depths to that aspect. I can tell you like, okay, purple is the Dionys energy for me, or that Pan energy, or that the Prince, or that royal energy. The blue represents the aspects of me expanding myself into the void of myself, that violet color. You can explain it, you can express it, because the vulnerability takes away that bias. As opposed to that infatuation, you always got to come back for more. See what allure, that organic sense, when you think about allure, and I want you to think about allure when you're looking at going forward in the thought processes of your space. When you look for the allure is in this organic sense. So I'll use the example. I now have 247 subscribers on my YouTube channel. I have 247 subscribers on my YouTube channel. Because I have an alluring sense to when I speak, when I teach, when I break things down. There's an allure to it. You have to sit with it. It's not microwave. It's something that you have to sit with. It's based on my experiences, whether the experiences from my direct or the things that I've observed. As opposed to you looking, and not all, just some, when you look at certain aspects with certain people that are speaking or bringing things to a certain space, you'll always notice that there's always a relevance of emotion. You'll always, you have to look at it, you have to go 3 in. You always go 3 in when you're looking at a reflection. So when you're listening to a message, how does it impact? How does it inform you? What is the emotional, is it based on emotional relevance or based on emotional presence? That emotional presence at first when you listen to certain information is supposed to trigger you. It's supposed to make you think. It's supposed to make you say, damn. It's supposed to make you like, shit, I never had a plan in my life. I only had some patterns. That infatuation, a lot of times for us in our spaces, that's when we try to build through the pattern. The infatuation of, ooh, we can all get together and create this utopia of a world. That's the dream. That's infatuation. So the intellect. Okay, cool. I know I can go get this, this, and this and open up an LLC. I know we can do this, this, and this, and we can go get some land. I know this, this, and this. We can go get this, this, and this. That's the dream. But that alluring sense is the plan behind each one of those aspects. That alluring sense is understanding the difference between building a team that all have their own separate aspects that can come together and create that larger entity, as opposed to the infatuation of one person being in charge, that martyr complex, that one person being the savior. And then you sitting inside of that space. It makes you start really thinking. I started thinking about this a lot when I thought about red flags. Earlier relationships, friendships, jobs, red flags that would be raised. And I really wanted to start looking at the red flags. Similar to looking at the aspects of, you can be in any relationship and call somebody a narcissist, but until, that's infatuation, you call everybody a narcissist, but until you accept the wanting to understand that everybody has narcissistic traits, for example, that's the alluring aspect. That's what lingers. When you think about your emotional presence, it's what lingers. It's what forces you to really go back and look at it over and over and over again. It's what makes you can go read a 3,000-page book, and I can give you a 10-page short story, and you can go back to that 10-page short story based on the energy of the alluring aspect of that book, of this 10-page story. It makes you want to go back into it. It makes you want to think about it in the depth with yourself. So as you're going into your space and you're understanding who you're speaking to and you're getting more intimate with yourself, intimacy is within the alluring aspect. You getting to know yourself is in an alluring aspect. That means you're looking at the positive, you're looking at the negative, especially inside of your shadow work. Because understanding that my shadow work is synonymous with everything that I do, it makes me really take time to assess the practice. It takes me outside of the loop of time. I'm not thinking about time. I'm not thinking about how long it's going to take. It's worth it. That value is internal. It assesses that standard. As opposed to the infatuation, when you're going into this healing process, this infatuation with your healing, it's the, ooh, this stone does this. On this day I'll do this, and on this day I'll do this. I'll write this petition and do this, and this should give me this, this, and this. That's the infatuation. That's the survival. You're infatuated still with that survival. How can this help me survive further? How can this help me maintain my conditions? How can this keep me further separated from myself? As opposed to when I really got into my shadow work, there was an alluring sense when I opened up a book on demonology, the Goetias, the Encyclopedia of Spirits. That alluring aspect was me learning how to apply it. That alluring aspect was understanding that once I take this in, that there is no going back to where I was before. There is no more existing. There's only living. I create a different structure. That alluring sense, it changes the aptitudes of how you create. You can create all day through infatuation. You can create the scenario in your mind, but it'll never feel fulfilling. This goes into when you're thinking about your design, your human design. This goes into the aspects of you can be infatuated with you being a Leo, a Gemini, whatever rising your sign is, your ascendant, your north node. You can be infatuated with it, and you'll only look at the good parts. The alluring aspect is found in looking at your negative parts first. It forces you to go further and deeper inside of yourself. That why. The allure helps you search for the why. Remember yesterday, if you didn't catch the video, it's up now. It's on my channel. It's on my page. It'll be available for 30 days. When you're thinking about your emotional presence, when you're thinking about your work, when you're thinking about your passion, when you're thinking about your purpose, your perspective, seek the allure. Seek what lingers. Seek what you go look at it, and then you go look back at it again, because there's more information as you start learning. As you start peeling back your layers, you can go back and look at that video over and over and over again and be like, damn, I found something new. See, that infatuation with numbers, the infatuation with psychedelics, the infatuation with the beat, the infatuation with the melody, the infatuation with the emotional relevance, the infatuation has you stuck on faults. See, infatuation have you searching for the faults. Infatuation have you sitting there searching for the faults. It'll have you sitting there highlighting and magnifying red flags. It'll have you looking at the conflicts and trying to compartmentalize. But that allure, it's about the becoming. What am I becoming next? I'm embracing this transition. I'm coming into this space. I'm becoming infamous to what I used to know. What I used to know, it was true. It was a belief. But I want to understand why I believe that. Why was that my belief for so long? Why did I hold on to that thought process? Is it beneficial? See, the infatuation has you looking for the benefits. How does this benefit me? And when we think about the benefits, we think about ownership. So how can I have this in my space? If I have it in my space, I ain't got to do the work. See, that infatuation, it'll have you lacking doing the work. Because if I got it in my space, I ain't got to do the work. If I got someone telling me all the time and always bringing it to the surface or doing the work, I can do the bare minimum. And then when it doesn't work, I have something to blame it on. I can always go back to my conditions. Everybody ain't ready for me. No one can accept me for who I am. But the alluring aspect is understanding that people do accept you for who you are. They accept you for who you are. I can tell you that they accept you for who you are because every time you have a complaint, they come with a solution. The solution challenges your comfort zone. That solution challenges your comfort zone. It forces you to assess your plan and your discipline. It forces you to sit down with yourself. So now you're looking at those red flags. Remember, stability, something like we think about stability being external. Stability is based on your discipline. Stability is based on your pattern. So many times for myself, I used to think stability was in my job. Stability was in the place that I stayed. Stability was having car. Stability was having these external narratives. That was my stability. But I had to understand that since I was keeping that as my stability, that when I lost it, that's when the exposure came. I got my car through guilt. I got the place through guilt or insecurity or fear of rejection. I got this space based on that to magnify this, so I can say I'm not insecure. I sit in my house all the time because I don't like people. I don't want to deal with people. I don't want to be around people. So basically, I'm denying myself the experience or the trigger that happens inside of the space. I talked about it inside of the podcast. When it comes to the aspects of until you forgive, as an example, a lot of times when we come into our forgiveness process, the acceptance, the acknowledgement, the acceptance, going into the forgiveness when we're going into our healing. There's an infatuation with the answer. So use an example of you're looking for an apology from your mother. The infatuation or the intellectual aspect is you need your mother. You can't move forward because you keep blaming your mother for something. Keep blaming your mother, keep blaming your father, fraternal figure, your mom's boyfriend, whatever. You keep blaming them for something. The alluring aspect or the intelligence is acknowledging that I need my mother to remain in that position. I need to keep my mother in that process of thought. Because without that, I can't create from that. I can't use that as the foundation for how I exist inside of my space. It goes into the aspects of, I made a post yesterday, and I was talking about, the post was like, you need to focus on not just being a mother, but also being an individual. That was not just things like that. When you start removing the biases and going deeper inside of yourself, that message is meant for the masculine as well as the feminine. Because I had to come to a point with myself where the true alluring or the intelligence of it was, in a lot of the instances, because of my the wounds from the father wounds, the maternal, the masculine wounds that were present, I would respond emotionally as my mother. So in a lot of relationships, when you think about a lot of relationships, you think about a lot of brothers that were in the aspects of single mother households being raised by their mother. You got to think about this aspect. They're reacting to the space like their mother. So instead of the individuality that's in vulnerability, they'll just react as their mother. The emotional aspect. So now you looking inside of your space, the next time you triggered, this is for the sisters. The next time you get triggered by the nigga being lazy or the nigga not knowing how to plan or things of that nature, it forces you to look at your seat. What seat are you in? I talked about this before in Acetopus, the lecture on my YouTube channel. You have to understand what seat you're sitting in. Are you sitting in that masculine seat? Or are you sitting in the feminine seat? Remember, you attract what you need to assess the seat that you're in. So a lot of times when you come into these spaces and you keep getting these no good niggas, they don't know how to plan, they don't know how to execute, things of that nature, it's forcing you to look at the seat that you're in. Same thing when you go into the brothers, the kings, the gods. You keep attracting the women in the aspect that are not emotional, forcing you to be more emotional with yourself. You're not understanding your emotions. 9 times out of 10, you're sitting in the feminine seat. You're sitting in the feminine seat. They're sitting in the masculine seat. They're not going to come out of that masculine seat until you understand your feminine seat. It isn't about you trying to take them out of that seat. They have to make that choice themselves. Remember, the relationship is the vessel in for you to experience and learn. It's not based on ownership. It's not based on you sitting there saying, I need a chick that can cook, clean, and do all of these things for me. Why? Ask yourself the real question, why? Because if I'm going to do all this, this, and this, then they got to do all this, this, and this. You got to think about that aspect. You should never go into a space. Remember, every space that you go into, 48 laws of power, be the negative in every space. Be the negative. You're the negative in every space that you go into. You are receptive in every space that you go into. The deceptive aspect is that you try to be the positive force inside of a space. That's not what you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be the negative. That's why when you go inside of a space based on infatuation or that face positive point, you try to build the scenario that's positive, and then you find yourself after the infatuation phase, now you're stuck in the conditions. Now your standards in check. Now you're like, man, I don't know what's going on. We used to have conversations every day. Now we ain't having conversations anymore. What were the beginning conversations about? I was always so vulnerable. I was always so open. Remember, there's a difference between the line of openness and honesty. See, honesty at this level of understanding that your healing is destructive. Honesty destroys the bias. You can be open all day. You can tell somebody all of your problems. You can tell everybody, I've had this happen to me. You can be open all day. I'm an open book. I'm an open book. But honesty, you must have acceptance first. See, the apology is the investment in the change behavior. But until I acknowledge with honesty where I benefited from that behavior, I can't change the behavior. Change the subsurface level. I'll go vegan for a couple of days. I'll go vegan in that relationship. I'll grow locks in that relationship. I'll start wearing crystals and meditate in that relationship just to keep the infatuation going. I'll listen to Erykah Badu albums all day for the infatuation. But the allure is really understanding how it resonates with you on a deeper level to yourself. The allure removes that ownership. It removes possession. It removes that sense of the need. It removes the sense of the wanting. And it taps you into your need. Every experience is a lesson. That's all you really need from every experience. I've said it, we've talked about it before. That point of reaction. See, infatuation, it puts you in that state of that reaction. It keeps you reacting. Well, this didn't happen the way I wanted it my last time, so now I'm in this space and this person fits the bill. But at no point in time did you go back and look at the constant that was the pattern in every space. That infatuation was a dream, that want. But at no point in time did you assess a plan. See, when it comes into you integrating with your shadow and going through this transmutation process and embracing your transitions, it's going to force you to the other side where you have to have a plan. On one end, there's the pattern. See, a lot of times when we stuck in this infatuation with our healing and infatuation with our spirituality, it's based on everything that you've ever been through, so you deserve or you're entitled. You deserve to be great. You deserve to be great. You deserve to be the fucking best. But there's a price to pay for you to become the best. There's a price to pay for you to become authentic. See, becoming authentic is not about competing. Becoming authentic is being the contrast. The contrast in every space. You are the negative. It's about being the contrast. That means in every space that you go into, using an example, everything that you've ever heard me speak on, from the most humblest space of myself, there's no going back. It's not based on for you not to go back. I understand for me it's no going back. I said what I said in that point, and now I'm moving forward. It's based on the application process as efficiently as I learn. It's based on the application process as efficiently as I learn. It's based on accepting that process. It's based on me accepting that to call myself or to call my name as Papa Lucifer Samdi is that I've went through that darkness. I've lived in that darkness for a long time. The more and more that I was going through the allure of finding out my family lineage and understanding that in almost every aspect of my lineage, the spaces that I go into are, when I talk about Puerto Rico, when I talk about the islands, it isn't the top part, it's the bottom part. When I talk about my aspects in Asia, Japan, China, it's not in the spaces that you see where all the cities. It's in the woods, in the wilderness, it's in the wilderness. You got to go somewhere to get to me. So it made me understand in my current state something when you come into your present life, why you had that avoidant wound in the first place. Why you needed that abandonment wound in the first place. Why you needed that neglect in the first place. See, everything is in perfect order. Everything's in perfect order. Everything's in perfect balance. Everything. Universe don't make mistakes. It's only your answer. You're the question. You're the why. So until I assess the why of myself and go past infatuation, go past the, ooh, it feels good, to understanding how I got to get better, changes the entire direction. It changes the entire course of action. You stop looking. You stop looking. You stop searching. You understand that you're attracting it. It's coming into your space day by day. Remember, your conflicts design your path. Your conflicts design your path. If I approach my conflicts through avoidance, I will always see an obstacle. But if I approach them through the awareness in that acceptance, I will always see my opportunities. I understand now, for a while now, that in my exalting, in my rising, in my becoming more authentic to me, the authority in my space, that those casualties were based on me being in the contrast. To what others see as negative, I've sat inside of those negatives. To what I look at my aspects in my healing, and I look at my presence now in that positive sense, I understand that that served me a purpose too. The longer that I sit in it, the better I am into the aspect of understanding my overall growth, my reason, my perspective, my purpose, my potential. I want you to take this. Your integrity, your humility, your potential, your perception, your perspective, your purpose are only found in the darkness. Remember, in the light is to project the perceptions of what I'm trying to preserve. From the darkness, your void that you don't want to go sit in, everything that comes from that is your absolute. That's your result. What separates you from applying to that, to assess your result, not change the result, but assess the result, is whether if you're emotionally present or you're still trying to stay relevant. I can stay relevant to guilt, and I can do everything based on guilt. I can go grab the video with Nicki Minaj right now talking about the vaccine and Chris Rock about the vaccine and talk about that and keep everybody engaged on the infatuation of the emotional relevance of the guilt or the anger or the sorrow. And I can just preach it to you. Or I can trigger what's dealing with you. I can give you that vulnerability to your energy with no fear that anybody can take my energy away. Anybody can tap into my shit. Nobody can tap into my shit. That's just something that I keep telling myself to feel good. Yeah, everybody trying to tap into my energy. I'm feeling drained and tired. Why you feel drained and tired? What emotion comes up when you're drained and tired? Man, I felt somebody else's guilt on me. Someone tried to put their guilt on me. It can't attach now unless it's already present. Can't attach now unless it's already present. Nobody can make you feel guilty. It's already present. Nobody can make you feel insecure. It's already present. Nobody can make you feel any type of way. They only can magnify what's already present. But you got to take that level of ownership. This week in the God Hour podcast, we got deeper into that aspects of that ownership through the natural selection or embracing the transition. 3 segments, including the reading. This week's reading was about unity, assessing your unities, your old perspectives, and the aspects of your efficiency. So I asked you this question that was asked in the podcast. Are the things that you're unified with, the relationships, the friendships, the ships that you use to set sail, they should be as helping you assess where you are and not where you came from. They should not be validating your reaction. They should be forcing you to sit down and look at your response. Those red flags that you keep coming up. Oh, he ain't got this, or she ain't got this, or this, and that. That red flag that comes up every single day. They're full of themselves. But you said that you want... Give a nice example. I gave this example in the podcast. You said that you were tired of being tired all the time and you wanted to eat healthier and you wanted to change your weight regimen. Here comes this brother, comes into your life that goes to the gym. And he says, hey, you can work out with me. I'll give you a nutrition plan. The first time you go to the gym, now, here's the basis. You're already insecure. So everything's going to magnify your insecurity. So now you go into the space and you see this brother in there. He got his tank top on. He got his shorts on. Got his sweats. You see his print. So now you're already feeling insecure about that because you're thinking about you're not understanding the correspondence, the last relationship you was in, and the brother was always walking around at the gym or whatever. And you remember that moment. So you put that into that space, that insecurity in that. You sitting there doing your first set of your first workout, and he's counting you off, and he's looking at his phone, and a chick walk by, and she smile at him, and say thank you. All she says is thank you, because he's trained her as well, because that's his business. But now you feeling some type of way like, you keep putting your insecurity in there. So now after about a couple weeks, you still stuck in that physical form. So now you're trying to get this, the only way you know how to react is physically. The infatuation. But he's trying to give you the alluring based in the plan. But now, when it ends because you get jealous, you get upset, you can't deal with it, now you go have a conversation in the same space where everything feeds your insecurity, the relationships feed your insecurity. He was full of himself, girl. If he couldn't accept you the way that you were, think about that. If you can react, you're in comfort. You reacted, you were in comfort. Let's take one for the brothers. You say that you want to become more business savvy. You want to get some more money in your life. You meet a financial advisor. You meet a very, very cute financial advisor. And she starts telling you about your money and how you spend money and breaking some things down to you. But you still insecure about your father running the game on your mom when it came to money. You ain't dealt with that yet. So now inside of this space, you're trying to connect or attach to her by trying to save her from her life. You find out that she's going to school to be a financial advisor, but she's a stripper to go to school. But since you're trying to still save your mother, what do? You try to save her. See, a lot of the times you go into these spaces, you're still trying to save the image that was once inside of your darkness. You ain't ready to deal with it yet. So you stay in that realm of infatuation. You go 6 months. You go 7 months, 8 months. You don't get what you want. It doesn't fit your pattern. It doesn't fit your dream. It keeps you stuck in that sense of independence of being a real nigga. So you just keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again. I'm here to let you know. The way the energy is now, there's no more of that. The way that I talked about it earlier in the year. This density now where your shadows are present, all you're seeing now is your shadows. You can't run around them. You can't skip them. You got to face them. You got to step into that space and face your conflict. So every time that you try to, unless you understand, you read a book on narcissists and then you said, ooh, my last bitch was a narcissist. My last nigga was a narcissist. But the first intellectual point of a narcissist is that they reflect that of the subject. They reflect that of the subject. Through infatuation, they reflect that of the subject. That means whoever they're in front of, they reflect the best parts or the best qualities inside of that person. So now you got to ask yourself, how many times have you done that? Everything only magnifies what is already present within you. But I desire you to be the fucking best. You got one or two choices. You can either stand at the bottom of the mountain, wondering what's at the top. You can stay at the crossroads and wonder what the other points lead to. You can stand in front of the ocean and wonder how deep it is. But until you're ready to take that dive, until you're ready to take that climb, until you're ready to take that step, there's nothing can be offered to you. There's nothing that can be offered to you. You deserve to be the fucking best. I want you to be fucking great. I desire you to be fucking great. Or I would not be present. So everything, from the consultations, readings, human design charts, natal chart analysis, and many of my other services. When you're ready, hit the inbox. Today is the only day that matters. You are the only one that matters. Everything outside of you is an experience or an observation. The experiences are meant to trigger you to learn that lesson, and the observations are to help you master your lessons. Understand your lessons. No matter where you are in your journey, be the fucking best. I love you. We love us. Ashe.